Zach Osterman from the Indy Star joining us. Zachary, how has your week been?
Oh, pretty good. How about you?
Not bad. Just busy plodding along. Looking for the next thing that's coming up, which we've got new rankings out from Rivals and basketball rankings, and not unexpected at all. Several guys took jumps. Uh, Braylon Mullins, of course, we all expected to take a pretty good jump, but I'm not sure I expected the jump that he took from 88 up to number 31. And then overall, Indiana is recruiting four guys that are in the top 10 and about a dozen that are in the top 70. So, which is a great menu to look at. But my question, and I mentioned earlier, I was looking forward to talking to you about this, is, and I wonder going forward, how will, with you've got Trent Sisley, Braylon Mullins, Jalen Harrelson, the in-state guys that are all highly sought after, and then the other guys that are not in-state. It doesn't matter. But how is the balance going to be achieved of recruiting freshmen as opposed to using the portal? Because the portal, obviously, you can see the experience that they've had. You can see the jump that they've made. And of course, freshmen are freshmen. Even five-star freshmen don't always provide quite what you might think that they do. But there's going to have to be a balance to this going forward with a roster. I look at Purdue as an example, and I think that there's no way a team can bring in six freshmen. Like, this is not the old Kentucky days where five of the guys were in the top 10. But that's a lot of freshmen to have. And so I'm wondering what's that number? Where's that number going to be? 3, 4, maybe max? I can't imagine you would bring in a bigger class than that just because of not knowing what your needs are always going to be, because you don't always know who's going to hit the portal. So there's always going to be a ton of questions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Nobody really knows. I mean, that's the answer. Is no one knows for sure, and you can have the best laid plans, and I've seen people, for example, say, "Well, why doesn't Indiana recruit some kids from the state of Indiana that will be happy to come and sit for a while and develop and whatever, and then they'll play when they're older, and then you accentuate that with transfers." And I think that the problem is that requires a lot of assumptions. Like a kid can love Indiana, can be excited about his Indiana offer, can be all in on the idea of playing in Indiana, but if he comes to IU and he sits for a couple years, there's every chance that eventually he gets to a point where he says, I think I'm actually ready for something else. Or he comes in and he doesn't develop the way you think. And then if you're a coach, you have to take a difficult decision of basically, do I persist with this player? Do I move on from this player? What's the right decision, essentially? There are just, it is much more complicated than it used to be. And listen, there are good reasons for that, or justifiable reasons for that. A lot of them centered on the fact that athletes should have had, more of these opportunities and more of this autonomy, to begin with. But it's still, I don't think there is necessarily a clean answer to that question right now. Now, I think the question maybe we're all asking, to some extent here is, as we introduce anything from revenue sharing to the potential for collective bargaining to more defined roster limits and different things like that, can we get to a place where, maybe if you are a a player, you enter into some sort of more binding agreement where, on the one hand, obviously the university or the athletics department, the program, whatever entity it is more committed to you, but in the same breath, maybe you are more committed to it, if you understand what I'm saying. You know, is that moment coming? I think we all think it might be, but it's, you know, it's not like that's on the calendar somewhere. And so for the time being, I mean, it's kind of uncomfortable, but you know, it is kind of something that, to be honest, you just kind of have to roll with the punches a little bit. And I think, you know, listen, I actually think Indiana was probably a good example of, you know, doing it in a decent way. If you think back to last season, Indiana targeted that 2024 class, you know, really went hard after some guys, some elite guys in 2024. And, you know, came close, obviously committed and signed Liam McNeely, but eventually he asked out of that letter of intent. They were very close on Derek Queen. They were very close on Boogie Flan. There were a couple others that, you know, they were probably kind of in and around the mix for, that just kind of never came to fruition or whatever. But the point is, when Indiana wound up not making out of that class what it had hoped, it pivoted to the portal. It, you know, sort of redoubled its efforts in the NIL space, and that made it competitive for some really good players that now have people, I think justifiably, you know, as we've said all along, you have to see it on the pitch to be sure. But I think we all sort of justifiably said, you know, or are saying now, I should say, that Indiana looks like potentially a Big Ten favorite. And so, listen, I don't know if it's really a long-term, you know, solution that you can kind of basically just live almost like cycle to cycle like this. I think what you would like in an ideal world is, you know, 2 to 3 high school guys and room for a couple transfers every year. But what you have to be prepared for is that ideal world can dissolve on you pretty quickly. And not just because, oh, you targeted some guys you didn't get, but because, you know, ultimately the players can move on even when maybe that's not what you would prefer, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. I've been wondering that, because, like, wow, they seem to be in about as good a position from a recruiting standpoint as they have been in Mike Woodson's tenure going into next season, with a lot of these guys. The in-state guys, they have worked and they've got really have relationships with, and then several of the national guys as well. And I think that, and having a good portal showing this year, and of course season, will obviously help that tremendously. But the fact that they were able to land the guys out of the portal, the different places from the different positions, whatnot, will also benefit them going forward as well.
No, I think that's fair. And I think, you know, again, like, is this what Indiana wants to do every year? Probably not. And we're, you know, we can look at this team and know Anthony Leal will be gone, Trey Galloway will be gone, Umar Bala will be gone. I wouldn't be surprised if there's interest on the player side, if Indiana explores the possibility of, you know, getting a year back for Luke Goody, but I think that'll be trickier than it was with Xavier Johnson. You know, that's not accounting for the possibility of somebody like Mackenzie Mbako or Malik Renew wanting to test the draft or even just leave, you know. So the point is, and then again, the other part of that is you're also assuming you hold everything else you have from a transfer perspective, which you can't really assume. So, I mean, Indiana's going to be back in this, you know, this mode again, probably next spring, and not because of some reckless roster management, but because this is just life. I mean, this is just how it is. And I agree with you that, you know, certainly in the NIL era, Indiana has probably kind of, Indiana is probably in as robust of a position as it's been, through that entire period. But I also think that it's difficult to really sort of pin down. I mean, like I use the Matt Painter example a lot. There's a reason why every time Matt Painter sat down at a table during the NCAA tournament, all anybody wanted to ask him was about roster construction, because he was the only coach there that, did not have multiple transfers on his roster, that had gotten guys to stick together, that had gotten guys to accept smaller roles or move to different positions or whatever. And I'm not saying Matt Painter's a genius and everybody else is playing catch up. I'm saying that you are almost in kind of a place where you just have to you basically just have to, sort of take it as it comes, do it your own way, not look at what someone else is doing and say, oh, we're doing it wrong, they must be doing it right. And just try to, put it together every year and maybe get yourself to a place, yes, where things are a little bit more stable. But all it takes is, one or two departures you didn't plan for or you wouldn't prefer, and stable becomes unstable pretty fast. And I think that I wouldn't be shocked if in the near term we see a push for coaches to get more time with players in the summer, because I think these summer workouts are becoming so much more important now, that the opportunity to, when you do have to sort of piece a team together, kind of in just a few weeks, or maybe one, if you want to call a fall recruiting window and a spring recruiting window, if you want to, sort of roll that all together as one cycle, I think that this becomes so much more important this summer period for coaches. And I wouldn't be shocked if you see more of a push for coaches, I should say, to get more time with their players. I have a pie in the sky idea that I think I have an ally in John Calipari, which is summer leagues for Power 5 teams. The idea that at the end of the summer, the SEC gets together in Atlanta, the Big Ten gets together in Indy, the Big 12 gets together in Dallas, the Big East gets together in New York, the ACC gets together in Charlotte or wherever. We can do this wherever we want. And, we separate, using the Big Ten as an example, there's 18 teams. We'd separate into, 3 groups of 6. Everybody'd play everybody else. We'd take the top 4 finishers, and we'd play a staggered 12-team, summer league tournament. We could do it all in one weekend. It would be like an AAU tournament for college basketball. And, I think it would be good for fans. I think fans would like it because and this is, forgive me, this is just my tilting at windmills now, but I think fans would like it because they spend so much time now wondering, who are these guys? How do they fit together? What's the vision for this? If you give them a chance to see it somewhere before November, I think they'd eat that up. But I also think coaches would find it valuable to just, if you are going to have to turn over, even a team like Purdue, which we praise them, praise Matt Painter to the skies for his roster management, and guys aren't transferring, and guys are brought in. Well, guess what? They're going to have 5-6 new guys this year. It would do coaches a world of good, even in a laid back setting. Nobody go too hard, don't get hurt, whatever. For everybody to just get a little bit of a look at each other, and for everybody to, not just workouts or controlled or open gyms, but you're out on the floor, you're in your practice jerseys, there's referees, somebody's keeping score, 2 15-minute halves and away we go, or 3 8-minute for 4 8-minute quarters and away we go. That is my pipe dream. I'm not sure anybody's listening, but I know Calipari's on board. Let's do it.
I agree. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and thank you for enjoying our content and videos. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications toggle so you don't miss out on anything, whether it's Indiana Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana high school action, whatever is happening in sports. We're trying to bring it all to you, and make sure you don't miss out on a thing. Again, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.